So lately I've been making a lot of flannel upcycles, crocheting cute little back pieces into flannels. And since it's getting warmer out, I've been cutting the sleeves off. And that got me to thinking, what should I do with these sleeves that I cut off? And so I turned them into these. They're sleeves, but now they're leg warmers. I crocheted around the top of each sleeve, and I added elastic. So there's underneath these stitches here is an elastic thread that I crocheted in so that they stay up nice. And yeah, I'm gonna do a short little tutorial, show you how to upcycle some flannel sleeves into cute crocheted leg warmers. So the first thing we're gonna need to do is cut off the sleeves to the flannels. And luckily most flannels have straight lines on them, so it's fairly easy to cut a straight line. I'm just gonna cut along the line that's already here. And if it's not perfect, that's okay too. So we're gonna crochet around it, and crocheting it, I can even it out with where we place our stitches. And we just wanna make sure that we cut the other sleeve in the same place that we cut the first one so that they're both the same length. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I know I just cut those other sleeves off, but this is a pair that I've been working on, so I'm going to continue on these. So this one's not finished yet, but I crocheted into it. I did 2 rows of single crochets, and the second row equals 36 stitches around. So I know that for this one I want to do the same. So I'm going to put stitches around. I have this metal, tiny little, almost with like a pointed edge, that most flannels are just like super soft and easy to poke holes in. So honestly, I just go in with this crochet hook and crochet around it. So if you could find yourself a little hook like this, a sturdy, strong, with a little bit of a pointed tip and it's small, that's what you're gonna want to use to do this. Okay, so listen, you don't have to have 36. That's not like the magic number or anything. That's just when I went around, just because I've made a couple now, I've gone around with single crochets and I fit as many as I can, and usually it's about 30 or so, you know, depending on the sleeve size, stitches that I can fit around. And then I wanted to do a little bit more than that, and you'll see why, because when we do because we want to make this like stretchy going around. So in order to make that stretchy, I need to, you know what, we're just gonna do it when we get there, because I don't know how to explain it until I'm showing it. But either way, whatever, you don't have to have 36, but you want at least 30. And it also depends on the size of the leg that you're making it for. Unfortunately, it's not an exact science, so you might have to mess around with it a little bit. But for this one, I have 36 stitches before I start. I have 36 stitches around before I start doing this part. So that's what I want to get over here. But for the first row, I'm just gonna place them as evenly as I can around the sleeve and however many I have, that's fine. It's the second row that I need to make sure I get to 36. So here's 1, and I'm just gonna count as I go around. 2, and again, we're just placing them evenly around, as evenly as we can. And I'm just poking this hook straight through because it's pretty easy, especially on this flannel. But I've done this, I've made like 4 sets of these so far, and every one of them it was easy. And these are just flannels that I found at a thrift store and got on the cheap, and yeah, I just want to upcycle because fast fashion is terrible, 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 terrible. Okay, so when I get to the seam, I'm gonna put the stitches close to the seam as I can on this side. And then because this is gonna be too hard to poke a hole through, I'm just gonna go right to the other side of it. And you wanna make sure when you're doing this that you're going low enough that these stitches are not gonna rip out, but you don't wanna go so low that it's like riching this up. You know, I like it about there because there's a nice chunk that it can hold on to. If we do it up here, you know, it might rip out. So we want to do it down a little bit, but not too far down. Not too far down. Sorry. Just watching that funny video. These guys analyzing 6 feet from the edge. Okay, anyway, so we're going to keep going around, placing stitches as evenly as we can until we get back to the beginning, and that's it for the first round. Alright, so I've gone all the way around with my stitches, and I'm just going to slip stitch back into the first stitch. And I must have placed these a little bit closer together than I did on this one. I have 34 stitches. I think I had 30 on the first round of this one, but the first round doesn't matter as much as the second round because we just want this to be the same width around. We want them each to be the same around, and even though this has 34 in this round and this has 30 in the first round, the second round is 36. As long as I get 36 in the next round on this, it's not, you're not going to notice the difference. So I just have to do 2 increased stitches as I go. So we're going around for the second round, and I'm chaining 1, and I'm going back into that first stitch. That's my first single crochet, and I'm gonna, in my next one, I'll just do 2, and then I'll wait till I get over here and do another 2, and then I'll have 36 stitches. But other than that, and I'm just gonna randomly, when I feel like I've made it halfway around, I'll add another increase, so I get those 36 stitches. And again, it doesn't have to be 36. What you can do, try it on the sleeve first. Here's the thing. Some of these sleeves to flannels that you find, they might not fit your leg. If you want it to go up to your thigh, you know, some of us have bigger thighs, some of us has smaller thighs. That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. But so you pull up the sleeve on your leg. If this doesn't fit, if the sleeve doesn't fit on your leg, these fit on my leg, so I don't have to worry about that right now. But if I want to make one for somebody bigger, I might have to cut down the sleeve. Maybe I'll do like a lace up. I might have to cut down the sleeve and make it wider so that it can fit on a bigger leg. You know what? I'll have to do another tutorial making a bigger one. But for now, if the sleeve fits your leg, You just have to worry about the top fitting your thigh. And I've made a couple, and this part will fit around my thigh, but it does have a hard time staying up. That's why I do add the elastic at the top so that it does stay up without a problem. Sorry, this tutorial is so willy-nilly, but you know, that's just how I am. I just go with the flow, and we're just gonna figure it out as we go. But yeah, try on the sleeve. If it fits up your leg and it fits up your thigh, you know that you just want this top piece to hug your thigh. So you can kind of decide, you can do 1 round of single crochets and try it back on. And if that is, you know, super duper loose, you know, maybe you can do decreased stitches in the next round. Okay, we've gotten, that's more than halfway, but I'm gonna do 2 single crochets in this stitch. So now I did 2 single crochet increases, so I'm gonna have 36. Again, maybe you'll want 30, maybe you will want 40. You can do increased stitches or decreased stitches to get the number of stitches that you want. I just want to make sure that both of these have the same number on the second round of crochets, and I want it to be the same height. So I believe I did 15 stitches. I gotta count it again. No, I did 20. So these rows are 20 high. And that's another thing, you can decide how tall you want this crochet piece to be at the top. Some of these other ones that I made aren't as tall. You can see this one's a little bit shorter, and this one I think is pretty similar to that one, but these are a little bit shorter. And I think on this one I do have 30 stitches around, and I just did 1 row of single crochets. I didn't do 2 rows on this one. This one I also only did 1 row, but this one I did 2 rows of single crochets, so I'm gonna do the same. But if you just want to do 1 row, you could just do 1 row and you could start the next step. But if you're just doing 1 row, like I said, make sure it's the same number of crochets around. Okay, so once we got back to the beginning, we want to slip stitch into where we started, and now we have to chain 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Actually, I want to switch to a different hook. Whatever, I'm just gonna switch to a different hook here. I just want a little bit bigger. This is just a 3.75. It's just easier to crochet with instead of this like tiny little. It's just a slightly bigger hook. Okay, but there's 20. Chain of 20. I need to do 1 more, 21, because that doesn't count. It's going to be part of my single crochet going back down. So we chain 1, and then we don't go right into that first chain, we go into the second chain to make our single crochet going back down. And there should be 20, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Reminds me of that. I just saw this video of this girl who's like, oh, how it feels when you're doing a chain as opposed to how it feels when you're going back into that chain for the second row. Anyway, if you've seen it, you know. So here is the part where we really get to decide how tight or how loose we're making this band around. Okay, so for this one, I did every other row. I did 1 or 2. I'll show you what I mean here. Okay, so to connect this, now I'm not gonna go back into the stitch that it's in. I'm gonna go into the next stitch and I'm gonna slip stitch. Now if I wanted this to be looser band, I can just flip it back around and go back up for another row. But I want this band to be tighter. So I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch as well, and then I'm going to flip my work. And now these 2 stitches are the ones that I just slip stitched into the band, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to look for and 1 to my 3rd stitch, and I'm just going into the back loop only because we want to create that ridge. So we're going into the back loop, pulling up a loop, single crochet, and we're going all the way back up. And that we want to make sure every time that we have 20 single crochets. But this is what I mean by making it tighter. If I just went into 1 stitch and turned it around, that's going to make it looser. Now, if when you get to this point and you try this on and this feels a little tight, you can keep it as it is and make the top portion a lot looser by going into every single stitch and making a row. Now, if you put this on and it feels loose, you want to make it tighter. Now, if it feels really loose, you'll do what we're doing here, and we're going to be going in every 2 stitches before we're going to slip stitch into 2 stitches before we turn it back around. For this one, I slipped into 2 stitches and then I slipped into 1 stitch in the next row. The next row I slip stitched into 2 stitches. The next one I slip stitched into 1. So I alternated back and forth. On this one, I actually did a single stitch into 2 rows. And then on the 3rd one, I did a slip stitch into 2 stitches and then turned it around. So you can adjust the tightness of this band by figuring out how many stitches you want to go into before you turn around and do the next row. I hope that makes sense. This one, I purposely made this a bigger circle. I did 36 stitches instead of 30 so that I can go into 2 stitches at a time and do the rows and make this tighter, but not too tight. Now, you can adjust this as you go. If you feel like this is getting too tight and you're coming around and you're like, that is going to be too tight, my leg's not going to fit in there, you can, you know, undo some rows and do some single and go back to a, you know, go back into 2 stitches if you feel like it. But this is where you have to adjust it to size, and it's trial and error. And I don't have this worked out for all the different sizes, you know, I'm just making them as I go. And I'm making them that they fit me. I mean, just because that's the only leg I have to test it out on at the moment. So unfortunately, these just aren't gonna fit everybody. You know, they're gonna fit people bigger than me. They're gonna fit people smaller than me. That's why I put the elastic in. So it is a little bit adjustable, but it's not super adjustable. You're gonna have to adjust it for your own needs. Oh, okay, so when we get to the top, again, you want to make sure there's 20 stitches. When we get to the top, we need to chain 1 before we go back down the row. And we need to go into the back loop only. We're always just going into the back loop only. That's how it gets that little bit of stretch to it. And again, count your stitches. Make sure you don't have to do 20 if you don't want it that tall, or if you want it taller, you know, you can do more stitches or less stitches. Just make sure every row is the same number that you started with. And I'm gonna come back down and show you again how to go into the next row. That last stitch is a little bit difficult to see sometimes. That's why you always want to count and make sure. Okay, so again, we're not going, this is the stitch that we were just coming up from. So we want to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now, if you, again, if you want this looser, you can turn around and start going back up. You would go back into this stitch. Again, back loop only, you would just skip that 1 slip stitch there, and you could go back up. That's gonna make a looser band, but I'm gonna slip stitch into the next stitch. So I slip stitch into 2 stitches, then I turn my work, and I'm gonna skip those 2, and I'm gonna go in here. Back loop only, single crochets all the way back up, and I'm gonna make sure I have 20 stitches again. And when we get to the top, we just make sure we're chaining 1 before we turn it back around, and we go into every stitch to make sure. Again, I'm doing 20 stitches, so I want to just make sure I have 20 stitches every time, but you get to choose the number of stitches that you want to do. And we get back to the top. This one's a little bit harder to see to get into as well, but it's there. You can find it. Chain 1, flip it around. We're not going into the chain 1, we're going into that first stitch and single crochet, and we're doing single crochets back down in the back loop only. And we're going to continue until we get all the way around. This one's a little bit further along, so you can see this one's halfway there. Still got a ways to go. And then once it is finished, you can either slip stitch it together or sew it together, whatever you like. And I don't have any more elastic at the moment. I just ordered more. I just used the last of it in here. So there is elastic yarn in here that I crocheted. I crocheted it in around the inside of the piece, and then I crocheted over it to, I mean, it sticks out in a couple little places, but I wanted to hide it as much as I could, and it's pretty much hidden from the front. And it'll just make it nicer on the skin to not have the elastic directly on your skin. So once I get that elastic in the mail, I can do part 2 of this tutorial. But from here, just continue going around. And like I said, unfortunately, this is going to be trial and error to see how to make it fit to the size that you want. And I've already had to undo the whole thing and add you know, more or less stitches here. But you can usually, once you do this part, if you have this part that fits around your leg, you can make adjustments in here that it's gonna fit to your liking. And again, it doesn't have to be super tight, because this is not what is gonna hold up the legging. It's just gonna wear out over time. It's gonna get looser over time. So you really do want to add the elastic or some other kind of way to you know, keep it up your thigh. I was also thinking of maybe doing like just tying a tie around, weaving it around the top, and you could tie them and make like a little bow in the back of the leg. So then you could tie it every time, but that's not always the most comfortable. But I'm sure there's other ways that you can do it. I'll work on other ways to do this and work on some other tutorials. Like I said, I want to work on making one that is for a bigger size thigh, because if the sleeve doesn't fit at all on the thigh, then this isn't going to work. But I think that we can cut down and do like a lace up. And maybe we could do a band that's just, you know, part way around and make that laced up too. So then we can lace it up and adjust it more to each thigh. I think that would be better to accommodate more sizes. I'll work on that, but I'm also gonna, when I get that elastic, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do a part 2. I'll go around, I'll come back to show you how to stitch it closed and how to add elastic thread around the top and how to crochet over that to make the finished legging. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I know it's kind of a little all over the place, but it's a fun time. And I think these just are really, really cute and just something fun that you can do with some old flannel sleeves that you're not using anymore. Like I said, I just wanted to make some summery upcycled vests, and I needed to figure out what to do with these sleeves, and this is what I came up with. This one actually had a hole in it, so I crocheted it shut. Crocheted the hole. Just like kind of looks like a little like coronavirus or something. Little starbursts. I don't know. I like it. But yeah, and you could add patches to it. Little flowers. Go crazy. Go crazy. Okay, I'll come back in part 2 and show you how to finish these up. Thanks for being here.